Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome once again to the United Regional Chambers weekly update. We try and bring some interesting subjects to light every week when we come. We want to again thanks AACS for hosting us. Today, my guest is the Executive Director of the Attleboro Area Industrial Museum, Mr. Carleton Legg. Carleton, welcome.
Thank you, Jack. Welcome right back at you. You know this place pretty well, don't you?
Yeah, I had the pleasure of being your neighbor right through that door behind you
Yeah,
for
yeah.
10 years. And it's always been a great partnership with you guys. This is a little jewel in the center of downtown Attleboro that we're hoping more and more people come to visit as the restrictions open up a little bit on this COVID-19. But I know that you've been doing some preparation to be able to bring some folks in. But first off, tell us a little bit about Carleton.
So I've been the director here about 6 years. I worked in the Attleboro Public Schools for a while, almost 40 years, taught math, did a little bit of instructional coaching, and had a nice little after-school program on cooking. And I knew I didn't want to sit around and have my wife tell me what to do in terms of, and she wouldn't. That's the beauty of it. But I knew I needed to keep active after I retired, and this opportunity arose. George Shelton was the past director, and he was retiring at the ripe old age that he was, and I kind of walked right from the classroom into the museum.
And you've done a tremendous job. You've brought some modern ideas and new ideas to the museum. I know that you've done a lot of, we'll say, construction there as well, because that was an older building that you and the board of directors. I had the pleasure of serving on the board of directors for a number of years, and you and the board of directors have really made some improvements to the museum. Tell us a little bit about the museum's history.
So the museum was a bicentennial project starting in 1976. The idea actually was started at the Chamber of Commerce. And the director at the time was Bud Ward, and there were a bunch of folks who thought that Attleboro needed a place that would basically promote and honor its industrial past. And through all the stars aligning, we ended up with this wonderful building we're in, which is the old Attleboro Refining Company. It was abandoned for a few years, and Andy and Harmon had owned it. Mike Baker, who was a great-grandson of the gentleman who owned this refinery back in 1898, made it come together, along with a lot of help from the people at the chamber and people like Bud Ward, who was the president, Jerry Coogan, who was a supporter, Betty Phillips, Augie Schaefer, Mel Gautieri, and they all came together and got this idea off the ground, and the building was deeded to them by Handy and Harmon. And when they cleaned it up, they found, because it was a refinery, in the pits they used to clean, $30,000 worth of gold.
Wow. Not a bad little find.
Not a bad. I call it the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Well, I know that the museum has been around since 1976, and what it does is highlight a lot of the former manufacturing and some of the present manufacturing companies. But you got your friend who sits just on the other side of that wall over there, Mr. Balfour. Sits there at the desk. And when I was on the board, you have many mannequins that are in there as well.
Yeah.
When I was on the board for a short time when George was away, I was the number one guy that they'd call if the alarm went off. Coming in there at night, those mannequins used to scare the bejesus out of anybody who went in there.
Luckily, I've never been called to come in at night, but there have been other members of the board who said the first time they went in empty-handed, but never again.
No.
Because they were quite frequently frightened by these dark figures that turned out to be the mannequins. we have a great layout with about a dozen mannequins, theatrical quality, and they really spice up the displays that we have.
They do, and they do highlight some of the things that Attleboro has been known for so many years. There's some buildings in town that there's a lot of the folks that have just moved into town within the last 20 years or so that don't really realize. Tell us a little about the buttons and the button display over there.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we do have basically 6 main exhibits. The Balfour exhibit. LG Balfour was a jewelry revolutionary and a innovator, and he had a company here for almost 100 years. Still in existence, was bought out. He died in 1973, and a gentleman by the name of Yeager became the chairman of the board, and eventually left the city in 1997, I believe, or 8. And they moved to Texas. They changed the name. And then about 7 years ago, they changed the name back to Balfour because they were losing recognition. They basically created the fraternity and sorority ring and pin market, along with the high school and college ring market. And then they branched off into awards and rings for championship teams. LG Balfour Company was the original designer and maker of the World Series trophy, the Commissioner's Trophy. And we have a replica of it here.
Yep.
Since then, Tiffany's has taken over, and they've redesigned it a bit, but it still looks about the same.
And tell us about some of the things that Mr. Balfour did, for the community. That's why he is so highlighted there at the museum.
Well, Mr. Balfour had great vision. I mean, he realized that people did the kind of things that they did not only for money, but for being recognized. So he recognized them, and people were able to make a reasonable living there. And when the stock market fell in the 1920s and 30s, he still kept people on and told them they could come in. He didn't pay them, but he said, if you need a place to get out and come to, he knew people by their names. He walked in and knew the watchmen, and he knew the ring makers. He knew the die and hub makers and all the office people. And he bought gold very shrewdly. And when it was cheap, he bought it. And he bought it to the tune of about over $20 million worth back in his time. And he put some of that aside in the LG Balfour Charitable Trust. And it has helped kids get to school and underserved people in the community, especially Attleboro and sometimes Massachusetts. And we here at the museum have been very, we've been welcomed and granted about probably $200,000 worth of grants most recently to replace our roof. And we did it in 2 phases. We did it in the one phase, which was a flat roof, and then we went on to the other phase. It worked out really well, and right now we're kind of high and dry, as they say.
Well, very, very important, because I know that was an issue for a short time while we were here at the building.
Yes, it was.
Now, you also have, during the school year, and I know things are probably going to change because of this COVID, but you bring school groups in and educate them a little bit. Tell us a little bit about those.
So what we do is we have a program called History to Go. And History to Go is a program where I go out to the schools and I wet the students' whistle about a local history. I tell them a little bit about Attleboro. The 3rd graders have that as part of their curriculum. I bring slides, and I also bring artifacts and books and things for them to look at. I talk to them for about a half an hour, and I let them touch things and experience history the way it was from the beginning of time here in the city. And then they will come in, usually sometimes as groups, but most of the time individually over the summer or during the other parts of the school year. I've got children that I've given my demonstration to, my little presentation, come back year and year again, year after year. So it gets them introduced to the Attleboro history.
And there's very, very rich history here in Attleboro. As Attleboro was known for a long time, the jewelry capital.
The hub of the jewelry world.
Yep. We still have, quite a few of the jewelry companies in town, but there are some other companies that you represent there too. Tell us some of the other displays that you have.
Well, we've got a great display of buttons, actually. Attleboro was one of the first producers of buttons back when Attleboro and North Attleboro were one community. There was the Robinson Button Factory, which was bought by the Evans Button Factory, Button Company, and up in North Attleboro off of Commonwealth Avenue near where Dyer Lake Funeral Home is, was their area, and they produced buttons for mostly uniforms initially, and then branched off into other aspects of that. And we've got buttons that range in our display case that go back to 1840. We also have a textile exhibit. Attleboro's first powerful and probably money-making industry was the textile industry. The Hebron Mill, the Dodge Mill, there are over 7 mills in the area. Hebron and Dodge still are there. You can see them. They've been repurposed, and they basically wove textiles. They wove cloth, and up until 1975, had contracts with companies like Fruit of the Loom. We also have a couple of smaller cases. Phil Krakowski was an artist here in Attleboro. He has the notoriety of being the original model maker for the Hasbro G.I. Joe in 1964. And we have a little replica in his exhibit here. But he also did wonderful sculpting in pewter and silver, in bronze and things like that. He lived on Lindsay Street. He was quite a character. Stories I cannot repeat in mixed company that people have come in and told me. And he actually was a really wonderful artist. And John Wayne made a silver belt buckle for John Wayne once. Had John Wayne's son called us here one time, wanting to confirm how many belt buckles we made. Unfortunately, we don't, that Krakowski made. We don't have a list of everything he made, but he was a prolific artist and just a real man about town.
And we get quite a few of those characters from Attleboro.
Definitely, yeah.
Now, if you had one thing that you'd like the public to know about the Industrial Museum, what would that be?
I think, people need to realize that this is a wonderful showcase of the history of industry in Attleboro, but it's also about the people. As I mentioned Krakowski, and we have a Hunt exhibit. Eugene Hunt, he did engine turning, where he did little fine finish work on men's items for Swank at one time. We had, LG Balfour, they're the Leach and Garner Company. We have a lot of great exhibits that talk about what made Attleboro, and there's a lot of facts about it. We people don't know about. I think many folks didn't know that the original World Series trophy was designed and made here in Attleboro, or G.I. Joe, and there's lots of other things like that. And it's a great little place to come and take a walk through. We're working right now to make it safe and positive for people to come in. Thanks to Jack, you put us in touch with a hand sanitizer company in Texas, and we got our hand sanitizers up and running, and they look real good. We're working on some signage, and we've got our one-way route. We want you to call ahead and say you're coming, because we want to limit the amount of people in the museum so it is safe for folks. Wear your mask, practice social distancing. We'll take your temperature, and if it's a little high, you're probably not going to come in, because we want to protect ourselves and people who want to come in here. And we're shooting for a couple of weeks to open. I was going to say next week, but we had a little glitch today. But You know, we'll be here at Wednesday. We'll be here Thursday and Friday. Normally, we're open on Saturdays. We're just going to start Thursday and Friday. We also do a Thursday night at the museum, which is something I started. A lot of people will come on a Thursday night, and we have tried to do something for people. Right now, though, when we reopen, we're going to start Thursday and Friday, 10 to 4. And if things go well, we'll get back into our old schedule.
Well, and one other small thing that I'd like to add to that is you have a beautiful room in the back that people can, rent or use for different. There was
Actually,
a wedding there not too long ago.
I call it a benefit of membership now.
Yep.
So as a part of a member, people become members, and that's one of the things that they get the member treatment in the back room, which is this year we had 90 school teachers in there for a state meeting for Rhode Island and Massachusetts. It was a sorority. And we also have had the Steampunk Festival use it for their third. I think it was their third annual program. We do have work with the Historical Society too, and we use that room. And right now we're kind of in limbo with how we're going to use that room. Hopefully we can try some remote things.
Well, and we've had a great partnership for many years, and I certainly hope that we can continue to do that. Carleton Legg, Executive Director of the Attleboro Area Industrial Museum, thank you once again for being my guest today. And hopefully we can get some folks to come by and visit and take a look at some of the history in Attleboro and learn a little bit about the history in Attleboro.
It's always great to do that. It's always great to talk to you, Jack, and tell them to check our Facebook page. You'll know if we're open or not. And we appreciate you. Thank you, Jack. Thank you for keeping us in the loop, and also for getting me those hand sanitizers.
Well, that's what we're here for. The Chamber's here to help. And as soon as you make that announcement, we'll blast it out all of our social media. We'll also put it in our weekly e-news as we always do. But Carleton, again, thank you. Stay safe. Try and stay cool today, too.
Yeah, well, thank you, Jack, very much.
All right, folks, thank you again for joining us once again. We try and do this every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. If there's anything that you'd like us to talk about or discover, research, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. It's Jack Lank at the UnitedRegionalChamber.org or Jack at United Regional, as Dave just put it up. Once again, I'd like to thank Dave Angel and AACS for putting this show on for us. And we hope everybody stays safe and try and stay cool. Thank you, everybody.